Alright, coming to you from the range today with a new product that's about to get released end of February, early March of 2022 from Bering Optics. They'll be replacing the standard Hogster-R 25 and 35 with the next iteration of the Hogster standard scope. So they'll keep the 25 and 35 millimeter lens. This model will be known as the Hogster VIBE, V-I-B-E. So it looks much the same as it did before. Why go away from a winning hand in terms of the housing, the materials and component layout of an already successful platform? So you really won't be able to tell the difference externally between a former discontinued standard Hogster and the new VIBE series. So it'll be important as you're shopping these to get with your dealer and ask which version you'll be getting going forward. As I understand it, you're not able to upgrade a standard Hogster to the new VIBE version. There's been some changes internally to the components, and that's sort of what represents the new refinements and updates. And so no backwards compatibility from a VIBE to the previous standard version. So we're going to get this out on the bench. I first want to review setting up the tension on the scope mount, and then we'll take a few shots at 100 yards, see how it groups on this 22-250 rifle, and I'll give you some details about the new upgraded specific features of the Hogster VIBE. Alright, let's visit quickly about some of the features and upgrades on the Hogster VIBE scope. So the big additions right out front for the standard series of Hogster, 25 and 35 millimeter, is going to be the addition of onboard recording. So no longer do you have to use, or you're forced to use, the video out from the side port to an external DVR with the wires and the cable management there. They've added onboard video only recording, no audio. And so to activate that on the Hogster VIBE series, you will press and hold the back button for about 3 seconds, and then in the upper right corner near the battery indicator you'll get a red dot with a counter. So another upgrade that they did, a refinement if you will, once we get the scope fired up, they added 4 reticles. So the original standard Hogsters had 4 reticles, and the Hogster VIBE now has 8. So you have 8 reticles to choose from. They also added Wi-Fi capability, so you can stream to a phone or a tablet device. Some folks are putting these on PTZ mounts, point tilt zoom mounts on vehicles, side-by-sides, things of that nature. With the Wi-Fi, you're able to stream to your video screen display and see what the scope is seeing. So, other than that, pricing, I don't sell these, so you have to check with your dealer and see what the pricing is at, but it should be comparable to what the 25 millimeter and 35 millimeter were before. Alright, so with that said, let's go ahead and fire this up, get some video recorded. I'll use the camera over here to get the audio, splice those together to bring you the full effect. Alright, so I want to discuss setting up your Hogster VIBE when you first receive it from Bering. Okay, this one came with a Bering Optics QR mount, quick release mount. It's their standard Bering mount. It is not lockable, but again, you're able to get it tensioned, get it set on the rifle, and then remove it by just throwing that throw lever, use it as a monocular, use it for other purposes, and then return it to this gun at some point and be near where your original point of impact is. So it's a quite versatile mount. Bering is setting these up from the factory. They're centering them as best they can with machinery and equipment to get a true center of where this scope mount is mounted on their machine and the true center of the scope. Then they epoxy the mount to the scope body to pretty much rule out any issues that a user could have once they receive their Bering Optics scope. So it is not recommended that you mess with these bolts or take the mount off the scope body. That would void the warranty. If you ever need to switch mounts or you have questions or concerns about your mount, you would reach out to Bering or your dealer and let them know what you got going on. So when Bering ships these mounts, they do so essentially hoping to use an optimal tension setting for the masses. However, it is upon you, the end user, when you receive your Bering Optics Hogster VIBE, to go ahead and tension this to your rifle, the width of your Picatinny or scope base, to this mount. And so what I like to do is put the throw lever with zero tension. It's completely released, and this is also how you adjust it. So pushing from the throw lever side, you will expose, or you will bring this nut out of the channel that holds it in place. Go ahead and take that counterclockwise a couple revolutions. Let it fall back into the channel there so it's locked in place. And so that should be a very loose fitting mate to your scope base. I like to go 6 Picatinny index slots up in terms of where I place the index key for the scope mount. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get that on there, make sure it's positively on. And then go ahead and tension the throw lever, and it'll be loose at that setting, okay? Now, typically you want to start tensioning that lock nut over here to the point that when you do the throw lever, tension should begin about 60 degrees out from full close. So I will begin making adjustments to where I get contact and tension at 60 degrees, and then without the use of a tool, I simply will press that in and lock it in. So, tension off, pushing here, and I'm going to turn that, 6 or 7 tension settings. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so right there, I'm getting tension about 60 degrees. And that should be all it takes for that scope to be tensioned correctly and adequately so it doesn't move. If you get too much pressure on there, depending on the materials of your rifle scope base, some of them are made of aluminum, depending if they're aftermarket. You can just begin causing all kinds of issues for yourself if you put the tension too tight on these mounts. So really, it's toolless. It's the way that they're designing these mounts. You just have to have enough pressure. It starts about that 60-degree level to have that scope not move on you and be ready to go downrange. Okay, another tactic that I use is once I've got that tension set where I want it, I'm going to take the scope off and I'm going to work that mechanism a couple, 2, 3 times off scope. You have to imagine that there is some springs in here underneath, and that's a moving tensioning device. So what I like to do is season the scope base or the scope mount to the scope base. And what I mean by season it is go ahead and put it on, tension it, take it off, put it on, tension it, take it off about 3 times, and then begin your shooting, zeroing, and everything there. I do this just for the matter of ruling out any sort of kink or hiccup, hang up, whatever you want to call it, when you're first tensioning and making adjustments on the lock nut. If everything doesn't sit just so and you go ahead and put it on there one time, the first time you take it off and put it back on in a QR sense, you may have wider variance than if you had seasoned the mount, zeroed from there, and then tried it out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Full tension. Off. Full tension. Off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the third time is the charm. Right there. So, let's go ahead and get zeroed at 100, and then let's take the scope off the rail a couple times, take a couple extra shots, and see what we get in terms of point of impact. So I put that back up. I added a full hot hands to the target as well as about a 2-inch piece of foil. So we have some more options for zeroing downrange. Real quick, the weather today, current conditions, 52 degrees, 38% humidity, and virtually no wind. The caliber today is 22-250. This is a single feed bolt action. And out of all of the target media today, the foil is going to be the best option. So the foil looks bright, and I can see it edge to edge versus the hot hands in their different configurations. So I will take a shot at the lower piece of foil and attempt to zero this unit. And this is at native magnification. All right, I need to go down, see where that impacted, make the necessary adjustment, and then I'll try a 3-shot group. All right, that impacted at 9 o'clock, about 3 inches off the foil. So I've made the adjustment to the 0 settings on the Hogster VIBE. We're going to take 3 shots to establish a spread or a group for this rifle, ammo, and scope combination. Historically, this rifle and these Winchester Varmint X 55 grain tip bullets have been about an inch, one inch to 1 1/4 inch MOA is what I've seen with other scopes. Going to initiate recording, and I'm going to go ahead and bump it up to 2 times digital zoom. Okay, 3 shots. Turn recording off. Scope to standby. All right, so by now I've rolled in the photo from down at 100 yards with the new Hogster VIBE thermal optic. The accuracy, I was impressed with the results. At 100 yards, it was less than an inch. So at this point, the question is, you take that mount off. Always be sure you put it back into the same slot. A couple back or a couple forward is going to make a huge difference downrange. So we've taken the scope off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Put my crossbar in the 6th slot. Tension it down. Wake the scope back up. Recording. The back 2 buttons are going to calibrate the unit, which I just did. So let's take another shot and see where it impacts relative to the 3-shot group. We'll go take a look. Recording off. All right, our final test of the day with the Hogster VIBE. It's performing admirably. That first return to 0 shot was actually touching one of the other of the 3 shots that represent our 0 group. So I would say no shift if you're touching where you zeroed at with your return to 0. I'm going to go ahead and take 2 additional shots. Again, taking the scope off, putting it back on, fire, scope off, back on, fire. And then that'll be the conclusion of our time with the Hogster VIBE scope. Again, get with your dealers on this. It's the new standard level entry-level scope from Bering Optics. It has refinements and new features that I think Bering, over the course of 3 years of having the previous standard versions out there, have listened to customers, have listened to the feedback, and have incorporated some real meaningful feature updates to the Hogster VIBE. Finish up for the day. We're going to go safe. Waking the scope up. Went ahead and flipped that throw lever forward. No tension. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Range is hot. Still on 2 times magnification for taking the shot. Target looks good. No concerns. Just for the sake of, I don't think I recorded that last one. Just for the sake of questions that may get, I'm going to go ahead and power cycle the scope. So it is now off. Turning the scope back on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tension applied. And this time I won't forget to hit record. Alright, we are recording. Record off and powering off. All right, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Bering Optics Hogster VIBE menus. I referred to the menus in 2 parts. The short menu, which you access through pressing the middle button on the top 1 time, and then the long menu, you press the middle button on top for 3 seconds and it'll bring up a longer menu tree on the left side of the heads-up display. Starting at the main screen here in the upper left, you have your color palette icon, your digital zoom value, the profile that you're in, the shooting profile you're in, ID feature if it's active or not, and then automatic nuke feature if it's active or not. To the right of that's the picture-in-picture window. Far right is your battery indicator. I currently have this connected to a computer, so it's running off external battery supply. Lower left, date and time. Alright, so I'm going to access the short menu with a quick press of the menu button. The first short menu is digital zoom. You use the front button to scroll through those values 1, 2, 3, and 4 times, and then the bottom is a screen brightness, and I'll leave it there for the remainder of this video. Pressing the menu key additionally 1 more time. The next sub menu or short menu is color palettes. You have red alert, rainbow, white hot, and black hot. Bottom is sharpness, 4 levels there. And then the next short menu is going to be reticle systems. You can do green, red, and then you have your reverse polarity, white and black. And then the Hogster VIBE now comes with 8 reticles, which is an enhancement. So 4 additional reticles with the Hogster VIBE scope. That concludes the short menus. Pressing and holding that menu button on top
Brings up the long menu. The first feature there is the ID mode. You use this for adverse weather conditions such as high humidity or fog to cut through it a little easier. The next one down is Wi-Fi. That's a new addition to the Hogster VIBE. You're able to stream to the app for a phone or a tablet compatible device. You can stream the output through the app. Some folks are putting these on point tilt zoom mounts on vehicles, and so you'd be able to stream from that PTZ mounted somewhere on the vehicle externally to the inside cab. The third icon there is, I have to get closer to auto nuke. So auto nuke on and off. The Hogster VIBE does present you with a countdown timer to warn you 5 seconds in advance of when it's going to calibrate. And it'll do that on the top bar of the HUD. Then you have video out capability. If you want to run an external DVR, you connect through the USB-C connection on the side of the Hogster VIBE, and you can stream the video out of that port. Picture-in-picture on and off. Voltage system, 3 volts is the default for factory CR123As. There's some sets of rechargeable CR123As where you have to change the voltage to 3.7 volts. Then you have profiles G1, 2, 3, and 4. This icon takes you to the next screen of the long menu, which is your 0 coordinates. You'll enter your up, down, left, right for zeroing. Pixel repair. Date and time. The information screen for the unit itself has hardware, software versions, as well as serial number and factory reset. So that is the long menu of the Hogster VIBE. The last feature we'll cover is onboard recording has been added to the Hogster VIBE. So pressing and holding the rear key on top for a couple of seconds will bring up a video record counter up there by the battery indicator. Video only, no audio, and that's a neat feature. It pretty much negates the need to have to deal with wires and an external DVR, and it's an enhancement over the original standard Hogster models. Alright, that's it.